On May 19, 1962, Marilyn Monroe stepped onto the stage. A nude, shimmering gown clung to her body, so tight it had been sewn shut. This was no ordinary performance. It was a declaration, a secret love exposed before the world. She leaned into the microphone and whispered, 3 months later, she was gone. The official story? Suicide. But behind the curtain, the truth unravels. Wiretaps, vanished pages from her diary, shadows of the Kennedy family everywhere. That song was never just a tribute. It was a warning. It was a sentence. It was the beginning of the end. The crowd at Madison Square Garden erupted. Marilyn Monroe emerged, wrapped in a shimmering gown of over 2,500 rhinestones. She looked like a ghost, a glittering specter beneath the spotlight. The fabric clung so tightly she had been sewn into it. It wasn't a dress. It was a second skin. But more than that, it was a message. A public, extravagant signal aimed at a very private man. Some say she wore it to provoke the First Lady, Jacqueline Kennedy, absent from the event, yet very much present in the subtext. This was no simple birthday tribute. It was an act of defiance, a desperate attempt to step out of the shadows and into the unforgiving spotlight of the Kennedys' world. A spotlight that soon would turn deadly. The lights dimmed. Marilyn Monroe leaned into the microphone, her lips almost brushing the metal. Then, in a whisper that filled the arena, she began to sing, "Happy Birthday, Mr. President." It wasn't a song. It was an act of seduction, performed in front of 15,000 people. Her voice was slow, hushed, every note dripping with intimacy. The crowd sat frozen. No one could look away. When she finished, President Kennedy, visibly shaken, joked that he could retire now, having heard Happy Birthday sung in such a sweet, wholesome way. But the air was heavy, the tension undeniable, the message received. And one absence spoke louder than words. First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy. She had chosen the quiet of a horse show, far from Madison Square Garden. The performance lasted less than a minute, but in that minute, the rumors crystallized into truth. The affair was real, and Marilyn Monroe had just gone public. This was no longer gossip. It was a direct threat to the most powerful family in the world. When Marilyn Monroe left the stage that night, she didn't just step out of the spotlight. She walked straight into the crosshairs. The public heard a performance. The Kennedys heard a declaration of war. Rumors of the affair, already whispered in stories of midnight visits to the White House, secret weekends in Palm Springs, now exploded. But after that song, something changed. The FBI opened a file. The CIA did too. This was the deadly reality of loving a president. Marilyn wasn't just watched. She was monitored. Her phones tapped. Her friends and confidants scrutinized. And she began to speak, recklessly, telling those close to her she knew too much. She claimed she could expose everything. The Kennedys' drug use, their conversations about Fidel Castro, secrets no one dared put into words. To Washington's power brokers, she was no longer an icon. She was a liability, a dangerous liability. 3 months later, the clock ran out. That short, breathless serenade became forever tied to the tragedy that followed. The question was no longer if she had a secret, but who would kill to keep it buried. The true complication, the final deadly threat, was not the president. It was his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, the Attorney General of the United States. Rumors spread quickly. Whispers that Marilyn had been intimate with RFK as well. Her ties to the most protected family in America suddenly doubled. This was no longer tabloid gossip. It was a conflict of interest that reached the highest levels of government. Actress Shirley MacLaine, among others, later claimed to have seen them together, suggesting Marilyn was being passed between the brothers, like a dangerous secret. The evidence, as always with the Kennedys, was elusive, hard to pin down. But the danger was real, because Marilyn began telling friends about something new, a red diary, a record of everything she knew about both men. If she revealed it, the scandal would not stop at an affair. It would drag the Kennedy dynasty into the shadows of political corruption, mob ties, and state secrets. Marilyn Monroe was no longer a mistress. She was an enemy of the state, and less than a week later, the threat would be eliminated. On the night of August 4th, 1962, the rumors of the Kennedy affair were silenced forever. At her Brentwood home, Marilyn Monroe was found dead. The official ruling, a probable suicide by barbiturate poisoning. But the scene told another story, a story of contradictions. The red diary, where she recorded her most dangerous secrets, vanished, gone without a trace. The toxicology reports revealed lethal levels of drugs, yet no pills, no glass of water, nothing that explained how they entered her body. And then came the most damning claim, that she wasn't alone. Multiple accounts placed Robert F. Kennedy at the house that very night. Had he come to retrieve the diary? Or did a confrontation turn fatal? The official record erased the Kennedys entirely, but the timing, just weeks after Marilyn threatened to expose them, was too precise to ignore. She was gone, only 36 years old, and to this day, the evidence points not to tragedy, but to elimination, not self-destruction, but silencing. The clip of Marilyn's song, less than a minute long, was replayed endlessly. It became immortal, a fragment of pop culture that outlived everyone in that room. The gown, rhinestones shimmering, fabric appearing nude, sealed her place as the ultimate American sex symbol. But the song did more than cement her legacy. It sealed her fate. Because the real story isn't the spectacle, it's the aftermath. The official version of Marilyn Monroe's death, neat, clinical, labeled a suicide, remains a fiction, a forensic lie, a political cover. In Washington, the secret lives of the powerful are never left unprotected. They are buried at any cost. The performance ended. The cover-up never did. And that whisper, "Happy birthday, Mr. President," remains the most beautiful and the most deadly challenge ever thrown at the American political machine.